Duane Carpenter, you see standing to my left, is, in my opinion, a remarkable man. He's been a long time teacher of the material which we know and love. He has also integrated in his own life a number of other related kind of teachings and put them through a beautiful artistic, as far as I'm concerned, there may be other ways to it, Duane wants to present it, artistic, scientific way of talking about what we talk about every day. I could say more about him, but we would like to hear from him and not from the introduction. So Duane, welcome, thank you.
The name of this presentation, as you can see, is Thunderbolts of the Gods, Electricity and the Science of Initiation. That name was actually taken from a group that just met recently in Albuquerque, the Electric Universe Group, and they're a kind of a conglomerate of plasma physicists and cosmologists and people from all different sciences and traditions that are studying mainly the idea of electricity as being the unifying agent of all that is. And we know we have Einstein's gravity and a number of other things, but they're saying that there is an electrical power in the universe, and this is a quote, that is a billion times more powerful than gravity. That is a huge statement. And what I would like to do today is in some small way make some parallels between some of the discoveries in science and esotericism along the theme of electricity. A quote from Master M in Community. The dynamo is not damaged because of the quality of the lamps, but uncoordinated voltage often results in a grievous zing. And the basic metal must be provided anew. The laws are identical in everything. Uncoordinated voltage often results in a grievous zing. Any discomforts that you are experiencing in your life as you go through the initiatory experience is the result of uncoordinated voltage. And that's probably a footnote that you should take in your mind. Now, to really fix that idea in your mind, I have a little demonstration. Very simple. I have two magnets. And when I throw these in the air, they're going to be attracted towards each other. And when they come together, they're going to make a clicking sound. But because the polarity is not exact, they'll click, be tossed away, click, be tossed away, click, and they'll build up in speed and tempo. And it does have kind of a zing sound. So I wanted to start this with something very, very visual. I've been accused of making things occasionally a little too abstract for many of the group to comprehend. That is entirely incorrect, and I'm going to prove them wrong right now. Okay. Two magnets, they're going to go in the air, and they're going to attempt to come together and reconcile their differences of polarity into oneness. And you'll notice the sound, it speeds up, because each clink, they get closer to the correct polarity, therefore they speed up and the sound changes. And when we get into the chakras and the rotation of the centers, sound is everything. Okay, one more time. 3 times. That was pathetic. Simple magnets. One of the most important subjects that we research and study as esotericists is what is called the portal of initiation and the burning ground that precedes it. All of friction and all of the burning ground is the result of two different forces meeting and being incompatible. Therefore, there is this effect that causes friction. And when that friction is reconciled because of polarity, and that's what we're going to explore shortly, the pain disappears, we enter into the portal and pass through the initiatory experience. Now, Fohat is the grand unifying agent of all esoteric work. It is the granddaddy of electricity, and it comes in two types. It comes in the unmanifested type, and it comes in the manifested type. When God breathes out and creates all the different planes through the different rays, that element of Fohat has to be carried cyclically right down to the lowest level. And yet, it remains ever one in its place of complete unity. Now, when you look at this image, you will note that right in the center, you have that point of stillness. That's Fohat in its unmanifested state. And all the swirling are the rays and their different Davic groups that they represent that rotate around it. Fohat drills holes in space. Fohat runs circular errands, just as Lawrence pointed out. So when it comes to the study of motion, Fohat is the point of what is called progressive motion, which in reality is actually no motion. It's a place of stillness, right here in the center. But if you look over here, there, see those little dark spots? That is Fohat in its manifested state. And you'll notice that just as this major spiral attracts all the different seven rays, or actually I should say sets them in motion, when you look at the seven rays, you got to look at the seven sub-rays, and then another set of seven, the divine septinates. So Fohat separates an aspect of itself from the original parent, and those lesser suns create their own little miniature universe with the seven rays revolving around them. Look at this as if it's an accordion, and during pralaya, the accordion is laid flat. And as manifestation, the great outbreath takes place, the accordion is opened. Imagine the accordion spinning around a circle, that it gives off multiple sounds, and it gives off multiple lights. Every sun of Fohat has its own little particular field of service. This is how the ashrams are created. This is how the seven rays basically come from the unmanifest. They spiral, they're circular. And as DK says, the whole thing can be brought down into the idea of wheels within wheels within wheels. When we study physics, we know it's not really wheels within wheels, it's spheres within spheres within spheres. And physics show us on a very rudimentary level how energies can nest. In other words, if these are different rays, how do they exist in the same space? They can, because of the tenuous nature of what they are, like an onion. Transparent sheaths or conical shells of lighted substance and sound that can nest one within the other. The parent can ensoul all of its children, but each child has its own autonomy. This is a huge concept, because when you want to understand the rays, you have to understand they do not exist independently. Okay, now, everybody get your magnets out. Right on top of there, under your seat or on your seat, there are some magnets. The door of initiation is electrical in nature, and you will not pass through it until you are vibrating electrically to the same frequency. So the whole idea of personality integration is so that you can get to a point where you no longer create an obstruction. So what I want you to do is I want you to take these two magnets and turn them so that the same poles come together. And you'll know when that is because they'll repel each other. Do that a few times. Feel the energy between these two magnets. Can't see it. That's the curious thing about the esoteric work and tradition. So much of it is unseen. But it's like this. If you turn the magnet slowly, it'll pull right out of your hand. It'll click right in to the correct polarity, which is positive to negative. During the initiatory experience, during the initiatory experience, as we will demonstrate, what happens in the chakra system is that these chakras are spinning and they're radiating with certain qualities of light. For you to pass through that portal, you have to bring up your vibrational level, and that greater life reciprocating will have to take you and flip you around, symbolically speaking, so that you are now the correct pole to enter into that greater life. This is physics. This is not New Age fluff, it's physics. Okay, let's look at these two magnets right here. What you're going to see in this illustration is huge, and it's so simple. You got two magnets, which you can see. Let's take B first. When those horseshoe magnets attempt to come together, they repel each other. And you can see these two lives. These are two separate lives, these two magnets, just as Lawrence pointed out. Electricity is a living expression of Fohai. They cannot be brought together because the polarity is incompatible. Now, when we reverse the poles so that the north and south and north are compatible, see how the lines oppose each other here. Here, they're one. This demonstrates in the simplest terms how two organisms, two forms of electrical life, are now one form. Because when these two come together, they are now one entity. And this is the basis of all occult work, is to keep synthesizing from the many into the few, from the four into the higher three, into the two, into the one. I would like to go over Ohm's law, but I've decided it's a little too technical and it would take a little too long. And Jose did such a good job, he stole my thunder. Okay. Now, let's just look at a simple magnet. Over here, on the right, if we look at A, if you bring a negative pole against a negative pole, see that little arrow and that little arrow? The electrons in those two magnets are rotating in the opposite directions. That's why you cannot push those magnets together no matter how hard you try, because the electrons that are spinning, and they're spherical, they just repel. They just repel each other. Okay, now over here, the reason why these two magnets with a positive and a negative pole are able to come together with such ease is because the electrons rotating in this electrical life and in this electrical life, which are separate, can become one because of their striation. If you could look at electrical lives, you would see that they have bands. And if these bands are not compatible or brought into synchronization, there is this repulsive effect. This is why the Tibetan says you cannot operate from the abstract mind until you striate the mental field, to create parallel lines through meditation and through study and through service. It takes the phantasmagoria of swirling energies on the lower mental and the astral plane, and it brings them into another term, entrainment. Electrons want to move easily along a path, but they have obstructions. And it is our goal in our art as scientists to be able to make these electrons flow without any opposition. And when you get into the study of Ohm's law, you realize you have a positive pole and a negative pole. How does this positive get to the negative? It's got to go through a conduit. If the conduit is a piece of wood, it's not going to work because it's not the right medium. If it's a piece of gold or a piece of silver or a piece of copper wire, it flows easy because the electrons have no opposition. We have to define our opposition, and as scientists and alchemists, learn to reconcile polarities. Okay. As science arrives, quote by the Tibetan, at a better understanding of the human being as an electrical unit of power and light, and of his triple mechanism as created of the three aspects of electricity, a truer comprehension of the significance of initiation will eventuate. Only when the electrical energy of the door is constructed in a synchronous way with the unit who's going to pass through will you have an unimpeded entry. Okay, another great quote. The inner fires that transmute, transform, and transfigure the human being are analogous to electric light, and the symbolic door of initiation that admits one into a more inclusive state of consciousness is itself an electrical phenomenon. Okay. Some of the characteristics of electricity are color, sound, vibration, heat, magnetism, radiation. The entire universe is electrical. We've kind of gone over that, but I just want to share with how the Tibetan categorizes these when he talks about the ray. The ray of one, power, dynamic, electrified forms will be the source. Ray 2, love, wisdom, magnetically electrified forms. 3, diffusively electrified forms. 4, harmonizing electrified forms. And then 5, 6, and 7, crystallizing, lucidic, and physical. All based on electricity. I think we're going to, well, let me just mention this briefly. One of the most difficult things to understand in meditation is that we have a personality note and a soul note, and that they are vibrating all the time. They give off light, they give off a note. And even though this is not the object of meditation, because it's in the nature of phenomena, when you begin to experience light in the head or some sound, you should be familiar with the fact that this may be some part of the portal trying to contact you and saying, okay, listen, wake up. And you have to do some purificatory work first to be able to reach that point. But everybody here has experienced light and they've experienced sound. And it will become a science. It'll be taught in the new esoteric schools. It's being taught now. The wonderful work that the USR is doing in conjunction with Moya School. I just spent 4 or 5 days doing esoteric astrology. It's just incredible what some of these brilliant minds are able to see and interpret and outline. I always get so much out of that. Okay, the Tibetan says that there are these fundamentals laid down by HPB in the Secret Doctrine, and he says that some of these postulates remain hidden, although Tibetan says the fourth is emerging somewhat through the study of psychology and the mental sciences. The other 3 fundamentals will emerge during the next 3 rounds. This round will see the apprehension of the 4th fundamental, which is A, that all that exists is based on sound or the word. That differentiation is a result of sound, that on each plane the word has a different effect. That according to the note of the word or the vibration of the sound, will the work of building in or casting out be accomplished. That the 1 3-fold world has 7 keys, and that these 7 keys have their own subtones. Okay, over here, whoops, we have the 7 rays. And second ray solar system, this is the hierarchy of light. This is the hierarchy of electric color. Keyword the Tibetan uses, not often, but in a few key places. Second ray solar system comes down triadically through ray 1, 2, and 3. Then it breaks down into 4 subsidiary rays, but I have just the 7 rays fused in the outer circle, and then their 7 subsidiary rays with their colors. And I don't make any claims that these are the correct colors. Generically they are, but color and sound, there's so many variations, you have to be very careful about being assertive. Electricity is produced by the movement of Fohat as it passes through matter directed by the central spiritual sun. Then it flows back. Electricity with its positive and negative charges is the lifeblood of the cosmos and all therein. Helena Blavatsky. Okay, this is another description of the 7 rays. And again, these are only broad and general charts and graphs. If you want to get all the details, you go to the Tibetan's works and you cross-reference it. This demonstrates the 7 subplanes of the cosmic physical, and it breaks down the 7 rays. Every single ray, every single plane has built into it those 7 colors. And they simply grow brighter in more luminosity as you go from level to level. So the thing is, you have the 7 rays, and then you have the 7 sub-rays. And when you begin to understand how the rays and planes operate, which we're going to next, you begin to see how the macrocosm builds and how that we must emulate or scientifically understand in miniature how this is done. So the 7 rays these septenaries keep duplicating themselves. This is the parent, it's the monad up here, and it just keeps descending through these threads and these spherical lives and these conical shells, keep spiraling and spiraling down, just like the first image that I showed you. Okay. Now, the image that you see right over here is actually the same picture that you just saw prior to this. This is the 7 rays. But rather than being laid out in a linear way, or like plates stacked one upon the other, what I did is I took those 7 rays, their 7 unique colors, and I rotated them. I spun them in Adobe Photoshop. So what you're looking at, Fohat, and Fohat is the original impulse. It attracts all the 7 David groups because of its superior power and will, and it sets them in motion to fulfill in some way its purpose. We call it the plan when it gets down to the level of consciousness and then eventually radiates horizontally. But that is an image of the 7 rays. And it's a good one to familiarize yourself with because it helps establish the idea of synthesis. We don't want to bypass the important building areas and the structure, but at the same time, after having analyzed all these magnificent parts, we want to be able to put them all back together and step back and say, yes. When you study the rays, when you experience the rays, it's never just one ray, one person, one meditation. It's a number of rays influencing you simultaneously. Okay, over here, same basic idea. This is a great quote by the Tibetan. All members of the human family are gathered and placed according to their rhythm, their quality, their heat, their light, magnetic influence, radiation, their activity. This tabulation is an extension of the major one which grouped all egos under the division of color, sound, and vibration. And these are the 7 notes the Tibetan, and I might add that HPB gives, each with their own little veils, of the 7 rays. Now, we're not told exactly what octave they're on, and hundreds of other questions anybody that has a musical background or an interest in this science would, of course, ask. But it's a place to start. And underneath that, that would be like their souls, their threefold integrated instrument, and then down here would be the ashrams that they are a part of. we always step out of one septenary onto another, and another, and another. Or perhaps it would be fairer to say we include one more septenary, because nothing is ever excluded. And like a rose or beautiful flower, one series of petals, one tier is replaced by another, but it folds down underneath it and creates more or less like a foundation. Okay, this is an attempt of taking the 7 rays, exactly as you've seen them progress here, and putting them into electrical fluids and undulating magnetic loops. Doesn't it have a real sense of beauty? Okay, we saw another image similar to this, but basically here are the 7 planetary lords, heavenly men, the 7 major ashrams that are expressed through them. This is somewhat linear and stepped down and simplified for you esoteric astrologers, but it nevertheless stands. You have 1, the sun, expressing itself through 7 sacred planets, and then the 7 is expressed through 49 ashrams, and it eventually can be broken down even further to 343 different levels. Second ray solar logos in the center. Okay, now, when you look over here, you see this is the same identical chart as this, only I put in the magnetic colors of them so that you could have a sense of they're all separate ashramic lives, they're all separate planetary logo I. But see how in the inner planes they're connected? They have their individual autonomy. Ray 1, Vulcan, Uranus, Ray 7, Uranus, Ray 6, Neptune, 5. You know, all the planetary lives have multiple rays on different levels, and that's, of course, not expressed here. So once again, the idea that you're stepping into unity. You're not just going from here to there. You are spherically growing and you are spherically expanding. Okay, let's look at the astrological signs. And I want you to look at that. Okay, let's read this first. Earth and Venus, quote by the Tibetan Cosmic Fire. Venus is negatively polarized, excuse me, and hence it became possible for a mysterious absorption by the Earth of Venusian force. The karmic tie between the 2 heavenly men, one in a positive incarnation and the other in a negative, caused the working out of an old debt and a planetary alliance. Light flashed forth in the Lemurian days and in a number of great groups of the human family when these 2 opposite poles made electrical connection. I should really have an image for that alone, but I put in the idea that according to the new theories of cosmology on electricity, that our solar system is nothing more than one giant magnet. And our solar system has a magnetic relationship to those other 7 major constellations that are so critical in our development. And when our sun boots up its radiance, its color, its sound, its vibrational frequencies to a certain level, it begins to create resonance with these outlying star systems and constellations. That is what is meant by occultly coming to one's aid. Until the planetary lives, until even the solar logos himself become attractive enough, build in that electrical and light and magnetic substance, we will not generate the light that will attract the attention of those great ones who live even beyond the mental plane. This is a perfect representation of the divine Anu, but it also represents all the bodies and all the planes. Now, it's just one rotating spherical life, but if you can imagine that all the rays have a different set of rotating speeds and magnetic resonance, and that it ensouls, it nests one within the other, so there's 7. And then when you can visualize that and bring in the 7 planes and see how they interface, you begin to understand more intuitively and through the higher mind the magnificence of these inner worlds and where your soul is. And as a last, nothing would be complete, Michael, without one of my small light weavers. This describes visually the chakra system, the spherical lives that we really, really are. It's done in ultraviolet light, and the Tibetan says we must train ourselves in the new Psychism. This has nothing to do with the astral plane for the most part. The new Psychism is to train ourselves to be able to see beyond the normal range of human perception and recognize these angelic and Davic lives, our rays, and our bodies, so that we can interface with them scientifically and as alchemists. Okay, are there any questions? Oh, have I gone beyond 4 minutes? You gave me more time? Okay.
Pick it up, Duane. Hey, Duane, pick it up.
It's made up of appendage of 3 blades, and the 3 blades, when they spin at high speed, will turn to 6, to 9, to 12, and hundreds, if not thousands, of variations, because it has many controls on it, and I'm just showing you what it looks like at its very lowest speed. But it's a tool that I use when I climax my presentations for people to see that there are new technologies that are trying in some very, very small way to represent the rays as organic, moving entities. Again, not to try to replace the foundational work of building. Okay, great.
Okay.